Wow. I love God. Maybe the only thing I do love, I love my family, and not a whole lot of things to love in this world, but I love God. I'm thankful for God. I'm thankful for the presence of God here today. Wow. Just, you understand where I'm at right now? Just a great presence in here, a healing spirit, a ministering spirit. Wow. You've been on my heart too. You guys have no idea. It's such a good thing to be burdened from the Lord. But man, it's heavy. To feel compassion. I can't imagine Jack not feeling compassion, crying a little bit. That'd be a cold place, wouldn't it, brother? Wouldn't that be cold? I'm glad to see us slinging a little snot. Sling a little on me. I'm like, I love you too. Back at you. and over there, I love you guys. Don't forget about this side. Let's sling a little snot. It means we care. And we care because the love of God is shed abroad in our hearts. And this is a fundamental ingredient to what God's calling us to. Because it brings the unity of faith in the brethren. Can't have a family, can't have a church, can't have a community unless we have unity. And unity doesn't mean we all look alike or smell alike or think alike even necessarily. But it means our hearts are knitted by love. That I embrace, I really like Jack, and he's ugly, but I've learned to accept that. I love you, brother. I love him anyway, because Jack and we love each other. We're not bound on it's good to be playful. But this is necessary. Because God is, I believe this with all my heart, and I think all of you agree with this. God is doing a new thing, and He's calling you into that. And let me say this, and I'm not trying to tarry on this too much, but I'm really burdened with this, is that He's also doing a new thing in you. He's not just doing a new thing corporately here. He's doing a new thing individually. And when that happens, new things start happening, things that you're like, oh, well, this happened, and this changed, and this went on, and I don't know what, but I'm changing work, or I'm changing this, or a career path, or a church path, or a ministry path, or a financial path. And just everything does this. And there's this shifting going on. You have to be very conscious and very sober in your heart and your mind to that, because it's a call to ministry. He's going to speak into your family, your relationships, into your work. You're going to feel different when you go to work in the morning. You're not even going to know why. You're just going to feel different. It's just not going to taste the same. It's going to look different. It's going to smell different. Even sitting in a chair this afternoon watching the football games. I think there's football on, ain't there? Yeah. Playoffs, right? Okay, I didn't look at the schedule. Even that'll feel different. That negativity that was on you, even that maybe just might go away. That judgmental spirit, you'll notice it ain't tormenting you anymore. That discouragement, it's not there. I don't feel it. That heaviness, sometimes you get discouraged. You just feel like it's the end of the road on something. You'll notice that it's not there. Yeah. Some of you are noticing it even right now. That's why we can't get out of this spirit of worship. Because we're feeling it even right now. Like that 100-pound rock you've been dragging behind you, that ball and chain, it just got. Yeah, and only God can do that. Only God can do that. Only God can do that. And God's doing that because He loves us, but also because He's calling us right now. Each and every one of you are here specifically, I think, by assignment. Now, we may have thousands of people that will come in and out of our fellowship over the years, right? But there are those that are called and assigned, and you know who you are. In the last few weeks, we've been talking about the beginning of ministry. We talked about the calling, the Word of God speaking to us, and then we talked about being realigned and being reorientated, and then we talked about the call to sacrifice. And this week, we're going to talk about the necessity of faith and vision. And how God, because in part of the call of Moses in Exodus chapter 3, and you'll have to forgive me, you can go to Exodus chapter 3 and 4 and read it for yourself. For the sake of time, I'm not going to spend a lot of time just reading text. Is that God give Moses, and we talked about this, a vision and a mission. He just didn't show up, did he, Carrie, to just like, hey, what are you doing, old buddy? You know, let's have a Coke, you know, or whatever, and talk about the good old days or whatever. When God shows up like in a big way, he's omnipresent, right? But when he shows up in a big way, sis, he's got something to say. I mean, there's something going down, right? There is something at hand. It is precisely for an objective. There is an objective. And that's why God's showing up in this way. Proverbs 29:18 says this very clearly. Where there is no vision, the people perish. And that could be inferred. It don't say this, but you could infer it. Where there is a vision, the people flourish. That would be the opposite of that, right? And happy is he that keeps the law. And you'll say precisely what is the law that he's talking about. That is to be kept. There's a divine order. There's a divine structure that God has in place that governs us in our activities, our relationships, everything that we do. That's the law. I'm saying this in addition to like the Ten Commandments or whatever. But there's a divine order, Brother John, that God has for life. And when we get out of that life, we experience disorientation. Things start falling apart. We start tripping and stumbling. Havoc of some type comes into our life. You've stepped outside of a divine structure and order or law that God has instituted for you to be able to progress and have your being and to experience the fullness of life that God would have for you otherwise. Now in Hebrews chapter 11, 1 through 4, and I'm not going to quote it verbatim, but it basically says, faith is the substance of things hoped for and the evidence of things not seen. And by that, the elders obtained a good report. So faith and vision work hand in hand. Because what faith is doing is reaching towards that thing that is like, have you ever said it like this? You're like, well, how can you prove there's a God? You're like, all I can say sometimes is like, there's something deep down in me that I can't deny. This voice, this experience, and like Brother Jack, like us old people like me and Jack, we've seen things that don't make no sense. I've seen God move. I've seen God do things that was only contributable to God, right? It just didn't make sense otherwise. Faith latches on to this perfect thing that you can't otherwise see. The things that were made, the things that are seen were made of things that were not seen. That's how the writer of Hebrews, Paul or whoever it was, goes on to say that there's things that's going on that were made by things that you just simply can't see, but yet you know that it's there. And vision ties into that. Because vision goes into something along the lines of what could be. You feel it, you experience it. Maybe you hear God has spoken over you, and it doesn't seem realistic, even though you know God is saying, I'm calling you to this. But you're like, oh my Lord, that's too big, that's too much. That's beyond me, right? Vision will take you there, in your mind and in your heart, but only faith can get you there. The thing that God's calling us to right now, maybe you've seen it in your heart and mind, Jill, over your ministry and over your family and different things. And Teresa, you and I talk about this all the time, my beautiful wife, Teresa. There's things that we can see that I would say that might be vision, but only faith can let me see there, but only faith can get me there. It makes me think a little bit about when we're teaching our children, or maybe even ourselves, about taking care of their bedroom, and I've talked to my kids a lot about this. Maybe it could be just taking care of a house. I want you to get something here. Is that when you go into vision, now listen to me, without a vision the people perish. When you go into a vision, let's just use bedroom. Most of us probably have had to deal with a child, or even yourself. You're like, brother, you hadn't seen my bedroom. It's terrible. I'm just going to light a match and burn it down. There just ain't no hope. Is that you can't walk up to a child and say, go clean your room. Now, you can, right? And what happens? You come back 30 minutes later and you look in there and you're like, I thought I told you to clean your room. Well, I did. Maybe they stuffed something, that was in the middle of the floor under the bed, and they don't have any concept or any vision of what a clean room even should look like. You understand what I'm saying? They don't even know what that means. They don't conceive it yet. So what you do is you begin to work with them on how to structure their thinking. Well, let's start right here, Jack. I'm tired of arguing with you about your bedroom. This is the dirty clothes hamper. Can you just get your dirty clothes into the hamper? And we'll worry about something else next week, right? And next thing, I come in, I see Jack's getting his dirty clothes to the hamper consistently. Yeah. All right, now, Jack, you got 14 pairs of shoes. We got a place right over here. I find them all over the house and all over the room. Here's precisely where your shoes go. I'm getting amens over here from Mrs. Bradshaw. And then you begin to teach Jack, here's where the clean clothes go. And maybe you separate like your work clothes from your church-going clothes and things like that. And maybe your work shoes from your church shoes, your good from your out mudding things. And what I'm doing over time is you're teaching that individual how to structure their thinking on all the way to making the bed, which is probably the most complex thing that has to happen in life. We're just using bedroom talk, right? Well, that didn't sound right. Constructing a bedroom might be the most complex task. And finally you get there and your child can walk into this room now and go, they can see precisely what it means to have a clean room. But maybe it took 6 months to get that child to that. So what was happening there is now that they begin to, once they have structure, they become orientated and fully integrated into the function of that room. They'll even say, hey, I'm glad you're here, Jack. I want you to see my room. They're not saying my mom and dad's room. They're saying my room. They're fully integrated into the ownership of what's been manifest in that room. And now that they understand what it took to structure that and put that together, and through that integration, now they're going to be able to have a vision. They'll say, you'll come to you, Kayla, and say, Mom, I would like to do something with that wall. And you're like, well, baby, what are you thinking? And they'll pop something out. I want to paint this and put this mural and hang this thing. And you're like, wow, they're developing a vision. If I go back 6 months, we couldn't even get the dirty clothes off the floor. Now, not only is all that accomplished, there's a progression towards something even more creative, something more beautiful. Talking about vision. Matthew 12:25 says, a house divided against itself cannot stand. Jesus was arguing with the Pharisees here, and he says, a kingdom divided against itself cannot stand either. And how can Beelzebub cast out Beelzebub? And likewise, a poorly integrated, disoriented person cannot hold themselves together. They've lost a sense of structure and importance and purpose. That's the other thing. I'm just using bedroom because we all can relate to that. If you're poorly integrated and you're disoriented, and let's say the responsibility of that, you'll say, well, they've lost a sense of structure. They've lost a sense of importance. Matter of fact, so bad, you might even go in there and find dirty dishes. Come on, can I get a witness in here? Don't make me feel like I'm the only one. You're like, my God, is that a cereal bowl? Or is that a piece of pizza? I'm sorry, Miranda, if I'm stepping on your toes a little bit. But you lose a sense of importance. And I'm not saying that in a negative. I'm trying to actually be playful because we're probably all guilty of that somewhere, some way, somehow, whether personally or in our families or whatever. And they lose that sense of importance because they've lost a sense of integration. They become disoriented to the importance and to the purpose and to the function and to the... I'm talking to you, church. Listen to me. I'm talking about church. I'm talking about marriage. I'm talking about life. I'm talking about finances. I'm talking about getting relationships back together. I'm talking about ministry. I'm talking about vision. I may be using a bedroom as a metaphor, but people stop coming to church or a relationship stops working. It's because somehow it's become disoriented and unintegrated from purpose and meaning and value. And somehow we've got off the track and we've lost focus and scope of the main thing, of the main thing, of the main thing. And it's hard to get that back until we get it back right here, right? We have to, people even say, well, you've lost it, or they lost it, or man, they fell apart over there, didn't they? You're like, yeah. And there's no vision because there's no point, and there's no point because there's no aim. If you looked at your relationships, your work, your money, whatever, your ministry, what is your vision? What is your aim? Is Christ in focus? And if Christ is not in focus, this will make you perfect prey to fall into the base sin nature of anxiety and anger and blame gaming and pain. As God told Cain in Genesis 4:7, sin lies at your door. And that word lies, Brother Jack, is similar to like a crouching lion. You know, you ever seen a cat in stalk? Essentially what that means. It's imperative that we understand what vision is, what God's calling us to, and that we begin to structure that thing that's in our life. Let me say this again, that we look at every aspect of our life, every element, every function that's in our life, and we begin to call that thing into order. That just using the bedroom. Now listen to me. Maybe you can't get there all at once. Don't even try to get there. Let me give you an analogy on that real quick since my brain went there. You know, if you have 100 goals, Caleb, and you're trying to accomplish them all at once, statistically, each goal is proportionately only 1% of importance to the aggregate number, right? So what happens is an effort to try to, it's eating the elephant all at once, if you will. If I'm trying to do it all, it means I'm only giving everything 1% of significant time, focus, and energy, and meaning 99% of my time, focus, energy, prayer, effort, whatever is going somewhere else because I'm trying to do it all at once. When I'm working on this, I need to just focus on this right now. Let's just fix this. Back to the bedroom analogy. The room is a wreck. Well, let's just focus on dirty clothes. Dirty clothes go here. Let's not worry about shoes and those dishes and that little trash can and the unmade bed. That's on the list. But if we can't figure out dirty clothes, Listen, are you hearing what I'm trying to say? I'm speaking metaphorically, but literally. You can't get to, like in a relationship, if I can't just start speaking positive things to you, I can forget about all the other reparations maybe that need to take place in that relationship, right? Like here at the church, if I can't just show up and maybe just show up, let's not even talk about ministry, let's not talk about giving or sacrificing, just showing up. If I can't get to that point, every other point is mute moving forward. So we have to look at it. We have to look at it very almost in a molecular way or in a micro way versus we can see the macro. I know we want to see that, but what in the vision, as we construct the vision, we have to be able to look at the one step at a time thing. Does that make sense? Now, as a church, we may be taking 100 steps because there's a lot of ministries going on, but we have to look at them, building a foundation. We have to come up properly, working, healing, constructing, shaping, forming, and dealing properly as it comes up, so that the hierarchical structure of your life or your church or your work or whatever it may be, that it can come up and that it can come up properly. That everything gets the proper significance. That we get properly orientated. That we properly integrate. That we properly integrate. That we properly integrate. That's the other reason too. And I'm going to close here because we took a lot of time and there's a lot to be said and I don't want to force feed this. I'm hung up on the bedroom thing. Who would have known? So what did your preacher preach on today? I don't know, cleaning your room or something. I couldn't follow the guy. I'll tell you what though, I did feel convicted. I haven't cleaned that room in 6 months. Who would have thought?
Vision and a mission. Right.
I can properly integrate myself if I, like in the bedroom, we'll start with dirty clothes. Just starting there. But as you work through the room, dirty clothes, clean clothes, work clothes versus church clothes or whatever it is, my fancies versus my non-fancies, and all the way to making the bed and all of that, if you accomplish that properly, then when the room comes together, not only will the room be integrated, you'll be integrated into the room. Do you hear what I'm telling you for your life, for ministry? So in order to have a vision, though, in order to have a mission, you have to be able to see precisely, though, where you are right now. In other words, Jill, I got to see that my room, if I don't ever see that the room is a clutter in the first place, I'll never develop a vision. And if I don't have a vision, Miranda, I never develop a mission. And if I don't have a mission, then I never develop what my stewardship is. What is the task? What is the work to be done? I don't even see it. So what I'm saying is, if you don't see like your family or your relationships, actually where they are and what needs to take place. And maybe there's something that needs to take place to cause you to see. Are you where God would have you? Is your family where God would have you? Is your ministry where God would have your ministry? Are your finances where God would have your finances? Is everything orientated towards God and integrated into that call and into that ministry or into that will of God? Are you progressing into that thing that God set down in you, or did you walk away from it? Have you stopped looking at it because you couldn't bear the sight of it anymore? I can't stand looking at this. I may have done that as a father when my kids were small. Just close that bedroom door. Now, Kayla, don't get up and stomp out of here. That's my daughter. But when you can actually see You have to see. You have to go from actuality. Oh, Lord, That's the beginning of vision, is to see actually where you're at right now in comparison to where God is calling you and what God is preparing for you. And that will check the heart, and that will begin to allow us to begin to reorientate. Is it aligned to Christ? Is it aligned to what He says? Is it doing what He says? Does it look like Him? Does it smell like Him? Does it taste like Him? Is He in it? And if He ain't in it, if He's not in it, then what is in it? If He's not the substance of faith, of things hoped for, and the evidence of what is it then? I'm all right. Yeah, I'm fine. Hey, you're dealing with a preacher here. He ain't hung up on nothing. I'm just saying, if the focus and the object of your faith ain't Him, and He's not the center of those things that are critical to your life, I'm just saying what is. And I'm okay for you to say, well, hey, Charlie Brown, I'm like, Roger that. How's that working out for you? How's that working out for you? Well, not too good. Well, maybe God's saying something. Because He wants to see you exceedingly and abundantly blessed. Above all you could ask or think. Moving you into a place of healing and blessing your family, your relationships, your children. If you're a mom, dad, or a grandpa in here, it's by default. If your heart's this much right, you carry heaviness with you all the time. There's a great work to be done there. Could you stand?